The intricate indigo patterns of the embroidered shawl seemed to shimmer under the harsh fluorescent lights of Riverside Academy's biology lab, as if they already sensed the storm approaching. The girl wearing it, Maya Patel, sat motionless at her designated workstation, her brown eyes locked on the whiteboard where complicated diagrams blurred into incomprehensible shapes. The shawl was her protection, her connection to family, a gift from her grandmother, Priya, sent across continents from Mumbai. Each pattern hand-stitched onto delicate silk. It carried the faint scent of jasmine and belonging. Today was supposed to mark her new beginning, her fourth day at this sprawling suburban institution, where the corridors reeked of disinfectant and silent condemnation. She had deliberately steered clear of the boisterous groups of students, the crashing locker doors, the invisible yet insurmountable barriers of social standing. She had survived until third period, and then everything shattered. The first contact wasn't from the instructor. It was a rough, calloused hand on her back, a squeeze masquerading as friendly greeting. "Yo, new girl. That's quite the look, Tyler." His Letterman jacket, a garish combination of orange and black, towered over her. The letter R for Riverside Ravens was embroidered with aggressive pride. His companion Derek slouched against the lab counter, grinning maliciously. "Yeah, what is that? Some kind of tablecloth?" Their laughter carried a menacing, guttural quality. Maya refused to acknowledge them. She concentrated on the anatomical chart on the wall, her mother's voice echoing in her mind. "Observe them, Maya. Don't react. Let them expose themselves." But her composure was interpreted as defiance. Tyler's fingers brushed the edge of her shawl. A transgression so casual it stole her breath. "Feels pretty flimsy, doesn't it?" Before she could muster the courage to respond, a sharper, more cutting presence sliced through the masculine agra. "Cyan. Is there an issue here?" Mrs. Patricia Whitmore's voice was like ice cracking on stone. She stood at the classroom entrance, impeccable in a tailored navy suit, her silver hair pulled into a severe bun. She had been observing, Maya suddenly understood, not to intervene, but to evaluate. The teacher's eyes, a cold steel gray, swept across Maya's shawl with an expression of deep revulsion, as if she'd discovered vermin on her immaculate laboratory floor. "This is a biology laboratory, Miss Patel, is it not? Not some ethnic festival. There are standards here." The bell signaling class hadn't yet sounded, but an unnatural hush had descended. Every student recognized that the hunt had begun. If you believe in standing up against injustice and want to see more stories like this, hit that subscribe button for Bully Tales right now. What unfolds next in this classroom will leave you speechless. ****. The lesson continued, an agonizing progression through cellular structures. Maya attempted to make herself invisible, to merge with the lab stool, but Mrs. Whitmore's attention kept circling back to her, a beam of pure disdain. In biology, as in society, foreign elements disrupt ecosystems, Mrs. Whitmore lectured, her gaze fixed on Maya. They introduce contamination. They must be identified and eliminated. Maya felt a burning pressure behind her eyes, but forced the tears back. She thought of her mother, Dr. Anjali Patel, probably in surgery right now, saving lives with hands steadier than her own felt at this moment. Her mother had taught her about medicine, about healing, about the power of perseverance. None of that mattered here. Here the power resided in a navy suit and a sneer. The incident, when it occurred, felt inevitable. The class was released for a brief hands-on demonstration. As Maya stood, Derek carelessly swung his messenger bag, striking her shoulder and spinning her around. Her elbow knocked against the edge of a lab station. A graduated cylinder balanced precariously near the rim teetered for an eternal heartbeat before crashing down. The shattering was thunderous in the silent space. 1,000 gleaming fragments scattered across the tile floor. Time froze. Then it exploded into chaos. Mrs. Whitmore crossed the distance in mere seconds. "Careless," she spat. The word was a blade meant only for Maya. Her breath reeked of peppermint and bitterness. Clumsy, dirty girl. Then, projecting to the entire class, her voice escalated into dramatic condemnation. This is precisely what happens when disrespect for protocol meets incompetent hands. This equipment costs money. This space is reserved for scholars, not for market vendors. The RAC. EL implication, previously a whispered suggestion, now rang out like a clarion call. Several students gasped audibly, but most simply stared, transfixed by the unfolding destruction. It was an accident, Maya whispered, her voice quiet but resolute. Your enrollment here is the accident, Mrs. Whitmore shot back, her face flushing with savage satisfaction. The power had completely transferred into her grasp. She perceived rebellion, foreignness, a challenge to her carefully ordered domain. That rap is an insult. It is a disruption. It is filthy. With that declaration, her hand lunged forward and seized the edge of Maya's shawl. The delicate silk strained against the force. Please, Maya said, her hands rising to shield the fabric, to protect her grandmother's love woven into every thread. Please, Mrs. Whitmore mocked cruelly. You believe politeness matters here? You need to understand your place. She gave a vicious pull. The tearing sound was something Maya would relive in nightmares for years to come. A devastating rip, the indigo pattern separated from shoulder to hip, exposing the simple gray undershirt beneath. A wave of scorching humiliation crashed over Maya with such intensity she felt lightheaded. Restrain her, Mrs. Whitmore commanded, and Tyler and Derek, enthusiastic soldiers in this campaign of cruelty, rushed to comply. They grabbed Maya's arms, wrenching them behind her back. Their grips were deliberately painful, designed to leave marks. The classroom became a kaleidoscope of shocked faces and gaping mouths. Someone let out a nervous giggle. This was the entertainment they'd been anticipating. Mrs. Whitmore examined her work, her fingers still entangled in the destroyed cloth. Now you appear as you truly are. Now everyone can see the truth. We're marching to the principal's office. Perhaps he can educate you where your people obviously failed. She leaned closer. Her voice became a poisonous whisper intended solely for Maya's ears. You don't belong in this institution. You never will. Maya ceased her resistance. She went completely limp in the boy's grasp. A profound calm settled over her consciousness. It wasn't capitulation. It was a strategic withdrawal into the most protected part of her being. Her mother's training activated. Document everything, Maya. Remember every single detail. The truth exists in the details. She noted the ink stain on Mrs. Whitmore's navy sleeve. She observed the triumphant fire in Tyler's expression. She saw the model of the human heart on the desk beside her, its chambers and valves mirroring her own constriction. She memorized every element, constructing a case in her mind, evidence against them all. Visito at that precise instant, a sleek gray vehicle with discreet government plates pulled into the RS section at Riverside Academy. Dr. Anjali Patel emerged, smoothing down her white medical coat. She had an unexpected gap in her surgical schedule. A cancelled procedure had granted her 90 rare minutes. She'd promised Maya a proper welcome lunch, a tradition they'd been unable to maintain during the chaos of relocation. In the passenger seat rested her hospital identification badge and stethoscope, fresh from rounds. She'd driven directly from a morning consultation at the medical center. She checked in at the administrative desk, offering the overwhelmed receptionist a warm smile that didn't quite mask her preoccupied thoughts. Room 312, correct? No, thank you, I can find it myself. She wanted to surprise her daughter. She imagined Maya's face brightening, a temporary relief from the intense, guarded expression she'd worn since they'd relocated to this uncomfortably homogeneous, uncomfortably silent community. She carried with her the weight of countless diagnoses, of lives altered by her scalpel. But in that moment, she was simply a mother hoping to share lunch with her child. The walk to room 312 was a journey through unfamiliar territory. The polished athletic awards in display cases, the cheerful painted murals, the resonance of teenage energy. It contrasted sharply with the sterile white corridors of her professional world. She located the door, slightly ajar. From within, she heard a voice, cutting and malicious, slicing through the ambient noise of the school. Where your people obviously failed. Her blood, which had been flowing at the controlled rhythm of a surgeon accustomed to composure, turned to ice, then to molten fury. She pushed the door open. Not a violent thrust, but a steady, unavoidable movement. The scene that burned itself into her vision was one of such profound, intimate brutality that for an instant, the experienced surgeon, Th. E. healer of the city's most traumatic injuries, couldn't fully process it. Her daughter, her brilliant, compassionate, observant Maya, restrained by two massive boys in athletic jackets, her beautiful shawl, the one she'd shown off with such joy that morning, torn apart like discarded wrapping paper. A woman in a navy suit, her back turned, her hands still clutching the ruined fabric, a monument to petty authoritarianism. The atmosphere in the room plummeted 20 degrees. The air seemed to vanish. Every student, every particle, appeared to freeze under the influence of a new, terrifying force. Mrs. Whitmore, detecting the seismic shift, turned slowly. Her eyes, so filled with sadistic triumph moments before, met those of Dr. Anjali Patel. They traveled from her granite-set expression down her pristine white medical coat to the hospital badge prominently displayed, then to the leather briefcase she carried. The symbols were unmistakable, transcendent. They spoke of authority that extended far beyond school discipline. They represented the full, terrifying weight of institutional power and professional consequence, embodied in a single enraged woman. Her hand released Maya's shawl as if the silk had become molten metal. The color evacuated from her face with surgical precision, leaving her a shocked, blanched shell. Her mouth opened, but only a dry, strangled sound emerged. The boys, Tyler and Derek, their brutish confidence evaporating under this new adult fury, released Maya's arms so suddenly she stumbled forward a step. "Release my daughter." The doctor's voice was the softest sound in the room and simultaneously the most deafening. It wasn't a request. It was a medical directive, absolute and non-negotiable. Maya didn't run. She didn't break down. She gathered the torn edges of her shawl, holding them together with a dignity more devastating than any outcry. She walked, step by deliberate step, across the vast expanse of the classroom floor to her mother's side. Only when she was safely within the sphere of her mother's protection did she look up. The look they shared transcended the mother-daughter relationship. It was between two people who understood justice and its profound violation. Dr. Patel wordlessly removed her white medical coat and draped it over her daughter's narrow shoulders. The pristine white fabric enveloped her, covering the torn indigo patterns, transforming her from victim into something entirely different, a plaintiff, a witness, an embodiment of wronged dignity. She then redirected her gaze back to Mrs. Whitmore. "Your name?" The words were clinical, stripped of all emotion, which made them infinitely more frightening. "Patricia." "Patricia Whitmore," she stammered, her body beginning to shake uncontrollably. "Mrs. Whitmore, you will escort these two young men to the principal's office immediately. You will remain there awaiting my arrival." She looked at Tyler and Derek, who appeared to be attempting to dissolve into the laboratory equipment. "Move." They moved, scrambling past her as if she were radioactive. Mrs. Whitmore shuffled after them, a broken woman walking toward her own reckoning. Dr. Patel addressed the silent, petrified class. "The rest of you will remain in your seats. Do not communicate. Do not touch your phones. Representatives from the school board and from the state medical licensing board will arrive shortly to document your individual sworn testimonies. Any coordination between you will be treated as obstruction of an official investigation. Is that clear?" A forest of heads bobbed mutely. She closed the door behind her, leaving a classroom full of teenagers who had just received the most powerful ethics lesson of their lives. The principal's office was a shrine to athletic achievements and fundraising plaques. Principal Marcus Thompson, a man with a practiced genial expression designed for donor meetings, initially stood with a professional smile. Dr. Patel, what an unexpected pleasure. The smile evaporated when he saw Maya swimming in the white medical coat and the pale, trembling figure of Mrs. Whitmore flanked by two ashen-faced athletes. "Sit down, Principal Thompson," Dr. Patel said, guiding Maya to a cushioned chair. She remained standing. She positioned herself before the principal's desk, a prosecutor before a compromised judge. She listened with terrifying patience as Thompson babbled about misunderstandings, dress code enforcement policies, and internal disciplinary channels. When the principal concluded, Dr. Patel placed both hands flat on the desk and leaned forward. "You have just described a criminal assault and battery perpetrated by a school employee with student accomplices. You have described the deliberate creation of a hostile educational environment based on national origin and ethnicity. You have described a pattern of discriminatory conduct that violates federal civil rights statutes. This is not a matter for your internal procedures. This is a matter for state and federal authorities." She retrieved her phone. She didn't call colleagues. She didn't call an attorney. She called the direct line of the STA's Attorney General for Civil Rights Enforcement, a woman she knew from medical ethics conferences. She activated the speakerphone. "Jennifer, it's Anjali Patel. I'm at Riverside Academy. I need to report a federal civil rights violation involving my daughter as the victim." She then proceeded to narrate the facts with clinical precision, as if presenting a medical case to a review board. She identified individuals. She cited relevant statutes. She described the evidence, the torn shawl, the classroom full of witnesses, the admissions just made by the principal. The voice that responded through the speaker was sharp, authoritative, and incensed. "We're dispatching investigators from the regional office immediately. Anjali, they'll arrive within 15 minutes. We'll also be launching a comprehensive investigation into the entire Riverside School District, effective immediately. Secure the scene and all physical evidence." Principal Thompson looked as if he might collapse. Mrs. Whitmore's trembling intensified into silent, hopeless sobbing. The facade of their insulated, controlled world had been obliterated by a single phone call. Dr. Patel looked at her daughter. "Are you ready to leave?" Maya nodded, pulling the coat tighter around herself. As they walked toward the door, she turned back. "We will be in communication. Do not attempt to contact my daughter. Direct all correspondence to the State Attorney General's office." The aftermath was a tsunami. The story was impossible to suppress. A student's covert recording, shaky but damning, capturing Mrs. Whitmore's hand on the shawl and the moment she froze in terror, found its way to social media. The headline practically wrote itself: "Surgeon's daughter targeted by racist teacher, watch the moment justice walks in." It went viral, a worldwide phenomenon. News vans occupied Riverside's manicured streets. Commentators debated on cable networks about education, racism, and institutional power. But this wasn't a simple story of privilege. It was a story of the law deliberately and precisely enforced. Maya did not return to Riverside Academy. She transferred to a prestigious, diverse international school downtown where she immersed herself in her studies and in a new, fierce form of advocacy. The torn indigo shawl was carefully preserved by her mother's civil rights attorney, tagged as primary evidence. The white medical coat she wore home that day hung in her closet, a sacred relic. The legal proceedings were methodical and unforgiving. Mrs. Whitmore was terminated, then arrested. Tyler and Derek were expelled, their families' expensive legal teams powerless against the federal charges. The investigation exposed a rotten foundation, years of similar incidents targeting minority students, all concealed by Principal Thompson to protect the district's reputation and his own position. The district entered into a comprehensive consent decree mandating sweeping reforms, mandatory bias training, and the appointment of a federal monitor for 5 years. The trial became a media spectacle. Mrs. Whitmore, appearing aged and diminished, sat isolated at the defense table. Her attorney argued she was a strict educator who had made an error in judgment. The prosecution presented the security footage from the hallway. The silent recording was more powerful than any witness testimony. The aggressive approach, the grab, the tear, the restraining hold, and then the stunning frozen moment of her terror when the door opened. Maya took the witness stand. She didn't speak of her emotional pain. She spoke of the facts. She described the sensation of the silk tearing, the scent of Mrs. Whitmore's perfume, the precise words spoken. She was an impeccable witness, calm, articulate, and unshakable. Her mother, watching from the gallery, experienced a complex mixture of pride and rage. The guilty verdict was inevitable. At sentencing, Dr. Patel was permitted to deliver a victim impact statement. She didn't speak as a physician. She spoke as a mother. You attempted to strip my child of her dignity, to brand her as inferior, to exile her from a community of learning. You exploited the authority entrusted to you by this institution to commit a small, cowardly act of hatred. In doing so, you didn't diminish her. You exposed the staggering emptiness of your own character, and you invoked the very power, the full force of American justice, that you assumed someone like her could never access. Mrs. Whitmore was led away to serve her prison sentence, a stark and permanent fall from authority. Months later, on a peaceful evening, Maya and her mother sat in their library. A fire crackled softly. The case was closed. The media had moved on to new stories. "Do you still think about it?" her mother asked gently, glancing at the box on the shelf that contained the folded torn shawl. "Every day," Maya said, her gaze unwavering, but not with shame anymore. "With understanding. You taught me that justice is slow and complicated and sometimes painful. But what you did that day, you made it immediate. You made it a shield. You showed me that when the law is wielded with love and precision, it's the most powerful force in existence." Her mother reached over and squeezed her hand. "No, Maya, you showed me. You walked across that room with dignity intact. You transformed their cruelty into evidence. You were the strong one." She paused. "The coat? It was merely fabric. Your courage, that was the real thing." Maya smiled, a genuine, peaceful expression. "We both know that's not entirely accurate, Mom. The coat was symbolic, but the strength, we forged that together." They sat in comfortable silence. The past acknowledged but not imprisoning them. The future a vast, open landscape of possibility, born from the crucible of a terrible day that ended, against all odds, in justice. So where are you watching this from? Let me know in the comments below, and if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Bully Tales. I read every single comment and your support means everything to this channel. Together, we shine a light on injustice and celebrate the moments when the powerful are held accountable, ***.